agenda, but more importantly, ensuring that communities are involved in the sustainability and management of the environment?
So I think historically we had conservation where you had large conservation areas, you had a lot of international NGOs flying in, experts coming in. But a key development that happened at the recently concluded COP16 in Colombia was the rights of indigenous and local communities.
Right.
And we're now seeing that, you know, for a lot of the ecosystems to be in the state that they are, we've got the highest level of natural capital across the world. A lot of countries in the global north, they don't have the same level of natural capital and natural resources as us in terms of wildlife.
Right.
So.
When you say natural capital, help me appreciate how that can be tangible. Are we saying that the trees...
Yes, the trees, the animals, the flora, the fauna. I think we mainly focus on the big five because they're exciting, but in terms of biological diversity, in terms of your plants, we've got a wider range of diversity on the continent. Mm-hmm. And I think this is an opportunity for us now to look and say, how can we harness it? Mm-hmm. And it's exciting because it's not just leaders and traditional leaders. We also have a lot of financiers. I know that as part of this workshop, we have a workshop in sustainable financing. So with that, it's looking and saying, how do we leverage this natural capital to unlock it? When you look at the continent, about 10 countries are paying more in debt servicing than in healthcare. Yet we have all of this natural capital. But if we can quantify and use modern technologies to measure what we know we have, we can now then start to leverage off of it through instruments such as debt for nature swaps, through biodiversity bonds. We've had successful rhino bonds, which was launched by the Development Bank of South Africa, and we can also now foster cross-border collaboration and learning from each other. So rather than us starting from zero, we can learn from Namibia, we can learn from South Africa, we can learn from what's been successful in Botswana. They can learn from what's been successful here. The Campfire Initiative is one of the most successful initiatives, and it's been a blueprint of a lot of community-led conservation efforts around the world.
Right. Now, I'm glad that you do bring up Campfire, and I also want to do double back to opportunities. When we look at sustainable livelihoods for people who are indigenous to these communities, how then do we tangibly address that? How do we make sure that individuals in communities are capacitated to be able to take care of the environment, but at the same time address issues that affect their livelihood?
So I think this is where it's exciting that we've got traditional leaders that can represent the voices of communities, because one of the big things is if you don't listen to people, how then can you create instruments or initiatives that meet their needs? Mm-hmm. So conservation, it's very localized because the ecosystem and the challenges in WIDS are going to be very different to maybe just across the border in Mozambique. So where it's exciting is having the different stakeholders coming in. We can now be looking and saying, okay, what are the new opportunities that come within the conservation arena? Mm-hmm. Like in terms of enhancing services, things like bird tours, there's very specialist niche groups where we can now be training and capacitating young people to now take up new jobs in terms of monitoring biodiversity. That's a young tech-enabled, it's a young industry, it's a tech-enabled industry. We know young people like technology, but we now need to identify and address what are the training and skills gaps needed so that we can have more of our own participating in and taking advantage and benefiting in terms of skills, jobs creation, in terms of tangibly being part of not just a beneficiary in a project, but actually actively involved.
Right. What would your appreciation be of the current measures that have been put in place to also address human and wildlife conflict? That also does come up as a major challenge in being able to manage some of the transfrontier continental areas with regards to spaces where human habitation either encroaches or is encroached on by wildlife. I'd love to hear your take on how some of the systems that have been put in place to manage them are being applied, but more importantly, how we can better go forward with it.
So I think most communities know what they need. And when you see human-wildlife conflict, I think we also saw it, especially with the El Nino-induced drought, that there was increased pressure. And I think it'll be interesting to actually have a look. I don't have the statistics on hand to see that. Did it elevate? But we have a growing population and we are encroaching in. So we now need to find common ground. And from learning from each other, there are instruments that can be used. This is where we now need to have everyone at the table, be it not just the financiers, but also the insurance partners as well. Can we set up parametric insurance services and packages to ensure that, when you look at insurance and the African continent, we are not that insured. But if certain, in the regrettable instance that an incident does occur, we need to make sure that whoever is involved can access healthcare, that there's a clinic close by. So this is where we need that whole of government, whole of society approach, because it's not just the conservationists. We now need the healthcare practitioners, the insurance practitioners, the financiers, the infrastructure, even roads. How easy is it to get to a hospital should an incident occur?
With regards to finance, you happen to bring up a very key aspect of how the sustainability of this initiative will extend. Tourism also dovetails with conservation on the African continent as a revenue generating mechanism. Maybe you can highlight how Zimbabwe has taken advantage of that through its conservation initiatives, but also how it can extend that throughout the SADC region.
So I think we've done quite well, and we know our tourist numbers to Victoria Falls. That's one of our biggest, it's the bread and butter for most of the tour operators. One area I think where we can be looking at other countries and learning from each other is also integrating the cultural aspect and element. When you go to South America, you'll see that, beyond post-COVID, I think tour consumer trends changed, where before COVID, it was okay to go to Africa. It was okay to just go for your safari. The average stay in Victoria Falls is two nights. So it's not that long. But when we actually become more holistic, people are now wanting longer holidays. They want more authentic experiences. There's a lot of communities there, enhancing things such as the farm to table concept, letting people go and pick their food, see where their food is, enhancing, reducing food loss waste, bringing in communities, not just also your farmers, creating opportunities. So from beyond the tourist activities, bringing in other stakeholders within the community to also benefit by providing, off-take agreements from the hotel. So there is opportunities to enhance holistically how people can benefit. And I think this is where we can also be learning from each other that, okay, what concept in Cape Town can we be looking and exploring to implementing and contextualizing and implementing here? What can we learn from Botswana? What can we learn from Kenya? A lot of people will go and they'll go to the Maasai territory. The people are wanting to learn more about African culture.
Poignant point you raise once again. Heritage and cultural exchange also seems to be a derivative that can come from conservation and tourism working together. And Zimbabwe also being able to leverage itself can take advantage of that. How significant can that be able to benefit the diverse communities and cultures that we do have in Zimbabwe, but also expressed through the conservation and management of our environment?
This is where I get excited, because when you look at conservation of our environment, one of the reasons that we have so much in terms of natural capital is conservation is embedded within African philosophies. Intergenerational decision making is embedded within our African philosophies. And it's exciting that whilst we have the TFCA conference happening, where this is one of the key engagements and gatherings before RAPSA COP15. And Zimbabwe really has an opportunity to leverage and raise the African voice to beyond us going with a begging bowl to say, we have some of the solutions to your problems. The African concept of Harambe, working together. Whilst multilateralism is failing globally, we've always historically worked together. So I think we can really bring that in to have positive environmental, economic, and developmental outcomes.
That's it. Thank you so much for that, Chieza. We will now be crossing over to the Harare International Conference Center, where we're joined by Ian and Rumbi, who will be giving us a rundown on the engagements taking place there. And of course, over 500 delegates, heads of state, traditional leaders, and environmental experts have convened over there. Let's cross over.
It is a good morning, Farai, and thank you so much for joining us. Yes, like you rightfully said, we are coming to you live from the Harare International Conference Center, HICC, where, of course, today it's all about the transfrontier conservation areas, where, of course, the conversation are around what needs to be done for our wildlife to be kept safe. When we talk over these confrontier areas, exactly what the governments are doing in as far as the region is concerned. And, of course, I'm Roland. We have Rumbi Zaichaka. Rumbi, it's a good morning to you.
A very good morning to you, you, Ian, and a very good morning to our lovely viewers. Yes, we are at HICC from today, the 19th of May, right up until the 23rd of May. Ecotourism, issues to do with disaster risk reduction, and of course, making sure if there are areas of collaboration and ensuring that there could be investments for the Sadc region in terms of sponsoring and promoting trans-frontier conservation areas. We're talking of biodiversity.
Right.
We are talking of ecosystems here. Probably to put it in layman's terms so that people find it easier to understand what we're talking about. When we talk of transfrontier, we're mainly talking of something that crosses across boundaries. It could be national parks, it could be shared stuff by certain regions, probably Zimbabwe and South Africa, as they share their borders. And when we talk of biodiversity, we are talking of plants, animals, microorganisms, and also when we get to talk of ecosystems, we're not talking of the areas where these biodiversity survive in. It could be ponds, it could be a forest. So we're saying they need to be protected. That's why we're having this conversation. There's been issues to do with climate change,
right,
and we want to curb such issues of climate change to ensure that the Sadc region actually collaborates in a way that all member states will benefit. So we expect 16 member states to be around, international experts to come through as well, and have conversations on a daily basis right up until Friday. Panel for discussions will be also taking place. Ian.
Like rightfully said, that some of the objectives of this particular summit are looking at the initiatives that they need to ensure there is political commitment by the governments within the region to ensure that when it comes to decisions, to policy being made, to who should be doing what, and as far as ensuring that our conversations are also are continuing, and that the heads of state and government will be coming through to ensure that there is more of a collaborative efforts to ensure that they all are speaking the same language. Remember, we're talking of the shared, these could be tourist attraction places, could be historic monuments. For example, Victoria Falls, shared of course by Zimbabwe and by Zambia. We do need to have same policies that speak to each other, and to further unpack and understand what exactly is going to be happening when you talk over these transfrontiers. What exactly are we making reference to? Now we're joined by Dr. Nyambe, the Executive Director of CASA. Doctor, good morning and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning and thank you for having me.
Now, in layman's terms, Doc, when you talk of the frontiers, people might say, what exactly are we making reference to? This is for the learned. Can you break it down in ordinary terms? What exactly are we making reference to?
Yes, in simple terms, transfrontier conservation areas are pieces of land that normally would contain a mosaic of land uses, different types of land uses, including protected areas such as national parks, forest reserves, settled areas, developed urban settlements and rural settlements, farming areas, and many others. Essentially, the idea is to bring together different parcels of land which normally would contain shared natural resources and also shared cultural resources for improved, collaborated, and coordinated management amongst the participating partner states. And in Zimbabwe, for example, Zimbabwe is part of what is known as Kavango Zambezi Transfrontier Conservation Area. It's also part of Mapungubwe, Zimoza, and Lower Zambezi Mana pools. Basically, what this means is that Zimbabwe has to coordinate and collaborate with the other partner states in the management of those particular transfrontier conservation areas. And when we talk transfrontier conservation areas, it's not just about wildlife. It's also about the different land uses that you find in those particular areas. And if you take the example of CASA, you're talking of more than 20 land uses, which includes 19 national parks, more than 60 forest reserves, and about 70% of the whole area being wildlife as a land use option. So essentially what this means is that you create opportunities for coordinated management and development of these areas for the betterment of the people, the biodiversity, and also strengthening economic development prospects, especially for the rural people.
Dr. Nyambe, you clearly explained what these are, but you also then mentioned the collaborative efforts. When you talk about governments, they've got their own policies, their own jurisdiction, and they are mandated to be doing so. What needs to be done? I've seen some of the objectives is that we need to increase political commitment to ensure that these transfrontiers are well kept and they are further developed, how can we best have policies that Zambia and Zimbabwe will share and say this is what we both need? Is it something difficult to create a common need, to use the Victoria Falls for an example as a shared resource that we have, to have a policy that speaks to the same needs?
Yes. So one of the objectives of transfrontier conservation areas is to foster harmonization of policies amongst the participating member states. And this is done in different ways. One mechanism is, for example, to have a framework document that clearly outlines what the expectations for each of the participating countries will be. So this could be, a good example is the Kaza Elephant Survey, which was conducted in 2022 to 2023. It covered the 5 partner states of Angola, Botswana, Namibia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. But the reference document, the document that birthed the initiative, was a strategic planning framework for the conservation of these species. So indeed, harmonization is a key instrument, because you cannot expect partner states to get together without agreeing on the fundamentals. And you rightly pointed out the essence of political leadership and commitment. Transfrontier conservation areas are normally founded on the basis of a treaty or a memorandum of understanding. And that gives the political impetus needed to develop the structures, institutional arrangements, rules of how the organization of the entire TFCA is going to be conducted. And importantly, very rarely do you see TFCAs getting to the state where they've gotten without political leadership. And this makes us very happy. Last year, as you may know, we had the Kavango Zambezi Transfrontier Conservation Area Heads of State and Government Summit, and this year we're celebrating 25 years of the Sadc Tfca's program, which has grown from 1999 to where we are now, and we now are talking about 13 transfrontier conservation areas, measuring approximately 1 million square kilometers, and the largest of which is Kaza, which accounts for about 60% of this landscape within the Sadc region. This has been a monumental progress, and this particular summit is definitely a key milestone in reaffirming the political leadership and will for the continued development of TFCAs.
Doctor, thank you so much for coming through. We are definitely going to be inviting you more to further to understand what exactly is happening again. Thank you so much, Doc.
Thank you very much.
That is Dr. Nyambe coming through to explain to us what exactly is happening, and is coming through from Kaza Transfrontiers. He was explaining how big it is, what has been done to ensure that these kind of transfrontiers are well kept and they are developed going into the future, where the Sadc countries will need to have a common goal of what the benefits the countries that are benefiting from the particular resource will also translate to the neighboring country. Romeo, we have had issues around what needs to be done for the region to constantly develop together, and they're talking about the coordinated effort to ensure that all these other countries will benefit from these transfrontiers.
Definitely, Ian, and we know heads of state and government will also be in attendance. Experts from various fields across the globe will also be coming through, as well as European Union. In just 2 months ago, they were here in Zimbabwe
Right.
For the Sadc Ministerial Partnership Agreement, and also they came with funding. So they were talking about management of natural resources, assisting Sadc region with that, and we expect them to having conversations to do with investments in the Sadc region. So we definitely are going to be excited the whole week as we get to learn more and getting in-depth analysis into those TFCAs. So now we get to cross over to Pocket Hill, where we will get to follow proceedings as they happen.
Consuming.
Thank you so much there, of course, to the team at the Harare International Conferences Center, giving us, of course, extending to a 5-day period of the week. And, of course, we'll be giving you that live coverage right here on ZBC. Take advantage also of our online platform at ZBC News Online. Send us your questions, comments, and your contributions on the platform to ensure that we do hear your contributions. Now, we'll be taking a close look at some of the conservation efforts that are currently being done to ensure sustainable development in our ecological region. Welcome to Zimbabwe, the House of Stones. Zimbabwe, a land of great people
a land of wonders. From the thundering smoke of the majestic Victoria Falls to the rolling valleys and mountains of the enchanting Eastern Highlands, the mystical water spirit of the Nyami Nyami in the Kariba, one of the world's largest dams. Welcome to Zimbabwe. Tinokugashirai siyakuyamukela at this great nation full of natural wealth, wildlife and rich soils. Be at home in this great nation of warm, friendly and cultured people. Welcome to Zimbabwe. Tinokugashirai siyakuyamukela.
And on that note, we're now crossing over live to the Sadc Summit currently taking place at the Harare International.
And forward-looking discussions. Let us seize this opportunity to strengthen our partnerships, align our priorities, and chart a course towards a more sustainable and precious future for our people and our planet. Together, we can create a legacy of cooperation that will endure for decades to come. Thank you for your participation. I look forward to the outcomes of your discussions and the positive impact they will have on our shared goals. I thank you all. Tatenda.
Another round of applause to our Permanent Secretary. Ladies and gentlemen, I know our Permanent Secretary, Ambassador Chifamba, is also colleagues, secretaries who are here with us. Thank you so much, because I know after this official opening, they will also be moving to the other meeting, which I will announce as we proceed. We will proceed to invite remarks from our international cooperating partners, and I will start to invite Ambassador Udo Vos, the ambassador to the Republic of Zimbabwe, the Embassy of the Federal Republic of Germany in Harare. You are welcome to the floor.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremony. I would like to recognize the presence of the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Environment, Climate and Wildlife Zimbabwe, Ambassador Chifamba, who is representing our host, the government of Zimbabwe. For further remarks, I would like to write on the protocol established already, as has been done before. Biodiversity is fundamental to human well-being. Biodiversity conservation plays a critical role in maintaining ecosystem stability and thereby supporting life on Earth. It provides essential services such as clean air, water, and fertile soil, and it offers resources for food, medicine, and economic growth. At the same time, it also plays a key role in mitigating climate change and supporting resilience against natural disasters. The rich ecosystems in the Sadc region are of global significance for human health and survival. At the same time, they provide critical livelihoods to local communities. Germany is a member of the High Ambition Coalition for Nature and People. We support more than 900 protected areas worldwide, more than 2.5 million square kilometers, where we put both local communities and nature at the center of cooperation that we offer and implement. For almost 33 years, Germany has been a committed partner to SADC and its member states. Cross-border cooperation is particularly important in biodiversity conservation, as ecosystems and wildlife do not adhere to political boundaries. One of the priorities of our cooperation for almost 25 years, which means almost since the beginning of TFCAs, has been the support to them. Germany has committed more than 270 million euros, which equals almost 300 million US dollars, to TFCAs in the SADC region in these almost 25 years. Through SADC, we have committed funds and programs to 3 focus TFCAs, namely Great Limpopo, Kasa, Kavango Zambezi, as you all know in your practice, and Masa, Malawi, Zambia TFCAs. Yet Germany also supports further TFCA in the region via the Sadc Tfca financing facility, through bilateral programs and via the Legacy Landscape Fund, such as North Luangwa, Nika and Wasa National Parks in Masa, Gonarishu National Park in Greater Limpopo, and Iona National Park in Iona Skeleton. Additionally, Germany is supporting the SADC Secretariat and member states in the areas of tourism development, strengthening law enforcement and anti-poaching activities, combating illegal wildlife trade, aquaculture, monitoring, climate change, and disaster risk management. As you can see from this description, TFCAs and the protection of biodiversity is kind of an organism, if you compare it, which is very complex and has a lot of aspects to consider when you want to ensure its viability and continuation. The progress made in the SADC region in establishing and developing TFCAs is a prime example to the rest of the world. And I think you all deserve an applause and a clapping of your shoulders for this being so successful. Your progress contributes significantly to the 30 by 30 target of the Global Biodiversity Framework. People from other regions and continents come to learn from what you have established here. It's a real model for the world. The development and management of TFCAs is, however, not without challenges. The recent droughts and floodings because of El Niño have amplified the need to urgently address matters of climate change and human-wildlife conflict. This applies in particular for TFCAs, where land uses are often mixed. Here the primary focus is on coexistence, so that the dual goal of wildlife conservation and enhanced human livelihood can be achieved. As we can see, this is really a daily challenge and task to be faced. The recently approved SADC Tfca program, the SADC law enforcement and the anti-poaching strategy, and the SADC wildlife-based economy strategy framework provide important strategic orientation to guide both domestic policies and local implementation. Germany also commends the well-recognized knowledge platform SADC TFCAs have established. And I have understood that during this SADC TFCA International Conference and Summit, the SADC TFCA network is relaunching its new website, which I hope will become a strong base for knowledge sharing and networking. The German government is proud to have contributed, together with the EU, to establish and to see its members come together at this high-level gathering. So a new instrument for the use of everyone. As a member of the EU, Germany also partners closely with the relevant EU programs. And we appreciate that the EU has started its support to TFCAs via the Nature Africa program last year in 2024. To conclude, I would like to say that I'm hopeful that this week's SADC Tfca conference and summit will further strengthen the TFCA vision and mission at the highest political level. Your high ambition, commitment and ownership will be the basis for achieving more, for both local communities and nature. Speeding up the implementation of TFCAs and the mechanisms will be of great importance, and we wish you all success in this endeavor. Thank you, Tatenda.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Vos, for those very inspiring but also reassuring message, but also for pointing out to the website which you also be launched. Another round of applause to Ambassador Vos. We'll move on to invite the European Union representative, who is the team leader, Agriculture, Environment, Private Sector and Trade, Mr. Bernard Tfca, to provide us with some remarks. The floor is yours.
Good morning to all, Mr. Permanent Secretary, Permanent Secretaries of Member States, CEO of Zimparks, and Will Wright on the rest of the protocol, as you have given the example. It's an honor for us to address today this important event to celebrate the 25th years of the Sadc Transfrontier Conservation Areas Program. This TFCAs still represent one of the most promising and forward-thinking approaches to safeguarding our planet's rich natural heritage while driving regional integration from below. I would like to thank the Zimbabwe government for hosting this event. As you all know, Zimbabwe is part of the 5 TFCAs. In a world where ecosystems are increasingly impacted by human activity, but also fragmented by political boundaries, TFCAs offer a unique solution to protect biodiversity while tackling issues affecting neighboring communities, such as human-wildlife conflict and the lack of livelihood and job opportunities. We recognize that the region has a world of biodiversity and is hosting some of the most prominent protected areas. It gives the region opportunities, but also challenges and responsibilities. Biodiversity conservation is of global interest, and the EU is taking its share of responsibilities. And thank you for letting the development partners restate that this is a shared responsibility and that we are in it with you. The EU is providing support to the TFCAs through our Natural Africa program, which for the EU is a regional flagship, underscoring the importance of the EU attaches to it. At its core, Natural Africa stands on 3 pillars, each essential to building resilient, inclusive and sustainable ecosystems. The first pillar is biodiversity conservation. This pillar is not simply about protecting species, it's also about ensuring that these ecosystems continue to provide essential services, such as clean water, carbon sequestration and sustainable livelihoods. The second pillar is green economy. Conservation and development are not mutually exclusive. Natural Africa supports the creation of green economy that promotes sustainable livelihoods while protecting the environment. The third pillar is governance and partnership. Effective governance is essential for ensuring that conservation initiatives succeed in the long term. Natural Africa places a strong emphasis on strengthening the governance framework that support conservation and development. For 2021-2024, Natural Africa had a budget of 155 million euro, targeting 6 mega landscapes in Africa. The Southern Africa TFCA is one of the targeted landscapes, and for the latter we have about 36 million USD earmarked to support the sustainable management of the 6 TFCAs in the region, for the benefit of the people and nature, fully aligned with the objective of the Sadc Tfca program. We have joined forces with our colleagues from the German Corporation, and thank you to Ambassador of the German Republic, which have been working to support this program for a long time, putting Team Europe, that's the European Commission and its member states and its institutions, together as a robust partner of Sadc and Sadc member states in this joint effort. We have kicked off the start of this or official support in April last year through the signature of contract with GIZ of Germany, supporting the project that is now called the Joint Natural Africa Climate Natural Resource Management Program. In parallel, in the first phase of our program, we target 6 TFCAs, which were already mentioned. And in the second phase, after 2025, the support will be extended to other TFCAs areas, and through the consolidation of our support going into the existing ones. We are aiming at supporting your efforts and consolidate your achievements in the longer term. Finally, we intend to contribute directly to the Sadc Tfca financing facility to support support projects on the ground targeting green economic initiatives in TFCs at the level of communities. We intend to launch the activities under this component in the next couple of months. As we look to the future, let us continue to strengthen our partnership, invest in sustainable solutions, work with local communities living in and around protected areas, and preserve the incredible biodiversity that Southern Africa offers to the world. So let me wish you good success in your works, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, AU representative, for that very inspiring, but also giving us very, hope that the future is great. Thank you so much for those remarks. We can also give him another round of applause. We'll move on and invite the country director for the World Wildlife Fund, WWF, Mr. Sadc Tfca, to also deliver some remarks.
Your Excellencies, Honorable Representatives of various ministries, distinguished delegates, esteemed partners, ladies and gentlemen, it is a profound honor to speak to you today on behalf of WWF as we mark a remarkable milestone, 25 years since the birth of TFCAs here in Southern Africa. Today, the Sadc region leads the world in demonstrating that when Africa comes together, prosperity follows. TFCAs are no longer just conservation zones. They are corridors of connectivity, bridges between nations, cultures, ecosystems, and economies. They represent regional integration in action, not only here in conference halls, but in the savannas where real people live, herd, farm, and thrive. WWF is proud to have walked this journey alongside SADC, member states, local communities, traditional leaders, and development practitioners for over 2 decades. From Kaza to Great Limpopo, Ruvuma, and just beyond SADC in Soknot, these transboundary landscapes have become models to the world, where diplomacy and ecology go hand in hand. Let us celebrate a few transformative successes which we've witnessed over time. In Kaza, over 230,000 elephants now roam across 5 countries. Thanks to the aligned policies, coordinated wildlife protection, and shared monitoring, like the 2023 Kaza Elephant Survey, a global conservation success story. In Ruvuma, community forest patrols supported by WWF and partners have led to 33% drop in illegal logging, for example, a win for both biodiversity and local empowerment. In Soknot, peaceful cross-border cooperation has secured migratory routes for elephants and the wildebeest, with over 20,000 households having regained access to critical grazing land. And in Zimbabwe, in the Hwange-Kazuma-Chobe corridor, nature-based tourism and sustainable TFCA harvesting are transforming local livelihoods. But what is great TFCA without great tourism? After all, nature-based tourism is the only industry where your star employees, like the lions, the elephants, don't ask for a salary, neither do they ask for a raise. Yet, they contribute up to 10% of the GDP in several SADC countries, supporting over 3 million jobs, most of these to the youth and to the women. With the right investments in infrastructure and peace, the potential in places like Kaza could multiply 5-fold. Together with communities and partners, WWF is helping grow incentive, locally led ecotourism that keeps value in the village and not just in the capital city. Yet, as we celebrate, we must also confront the hard truths. Climate change is drying up rivers, shifting wildlife movement, and compounding human-wildlife conflict. Expanding infrastructure, such as mining and land use change, important to economic development, continue to fragment critical corridors. Uncertainty with funding sources, for instance, under-resourced conservation efforts, and insufficient community benefit sharing threaten the long-term viability of this shared vision. These are not reasons to retreat. These are reasons to act with urgency, ambition, and innovation. WWF believes the next generation of TFCAs must continue to evolve from protected area focus to connected economies. We propose 5 priority actions. Number 1, invest in nature-based economies, including ecotourism, non-timber forest products, carbon and wildlife credits. Secure ecological corridor integrity through joint land use planning and incentives for community stewardships. And also champion the One Health approaches that link people, wildlife, ecosystem, because our futures are intertwined. And also strengthen the youth leadership and local governance, fueling innovation, entrepreneurship at the grassroots, and institutionalize sustainability, moving beyond temporary projects to long-term investment that also incorporate the private sector and lasting political commitment. Let us align our work with Africa's own vision, the Africa Union Agenda 2063. The Africa Continent Trade Area, Free Trade Area, and the Global Biodiversity Framework, for instance. Let us make TFCA engines for peace, prosperity, and planetary health. Friends, 25 years ago, this was a dream where Africa, with its lions, leopards, and livelihoods, could thrive across borders. Today, this dream is real, but not yet fully realized. Our task is to complete this vision so that in another 25 years, a child growing up in Chobe, in Nyasa, or Binga can become a ranger, a community leader, a policymaker, or even the next speaker at the TFCA summit. As Nelson Mandela reminded us, it is in the character of growth that we should learn from our experiences, move forward and build a better future. Let us move forward together. Let us protect our shared natural heritage together. Let us walk like the elephant, bold, connected, and determined. Thank you.
Thank you. And I had said it by a country director, and someone was asking me, country director, which office then? So that's the Zimbabwe office. So thank you so much. We can also give him a round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll continue. At this point in time, I would like to invite Professor Andrew Nambota from the PIXPAX Foundation to help us also, deliver some remarks. Every time we hear about TFCAs, PIXPAX Foundation is one entity you always associate with TFCAs. So Prof. Nambota, you may come and deliver remarks. You can welcome me.
Good morning. Ambassador Chifamba, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Climate and Wildlife, Republic of Zimbabwe, our host. Permanent Secretaries here present from the neighboring countries, from Sadc. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, partners and friends. It is indeed a privilege to address you today on behalf of PIXPAX Foundation as we gather to celebrate 25 years of frontier conservation area development in the Sadc region. a visionary initiative that has transformed conservation in the Southern African region. From diplomacy to action. Peace Parks Foundation was established in 1997 by President Nelson Mandela, His Royal Highness Prince Bernard of the Netherlands, and Dr. Anton Rupert. Their vision, ladies and gentlemen, was to create a network of interconnected protected areas that transcend national borders, fostering peace and stability through shared natural heritage. Peace Park's journey began with advocacy and diplomacy, laying groundwork for Southern Africa's first transboundary conservation area, the Galagadi Transfrontier Park, officially opened on 12th May 2000 by Presidents Festus Mogae of Botswana and Thabo Mbeki of South Africa. As Africa's first transfrontier park, this landscape we celebrate today is a powerful symbol of regional cooperation. This milestone, at a critical time in the history of peace building in Southern Africa, demonstrated the potential of cross-border conservation and set the stage for subsequent transboundary landscapes across the region. A commitment of growth. Over the past 27 years, Peace Parks Foundation has been instrumental in establishing 10 of the 18 TFCAs in Southern Africa, spanning 11 international borders. We are actively engaged in 5 transboundary landscapes, including Great Limpopo, Lubombo, Malawi, Zambia, Kavango Zambezi Transfrontier Conservation Area, and the Lower Zambezi Manapuz Transfrontier Conservation Area. Our efforts have been guided by the principle that government leadership is paramount, with Peace Parks serving as a facilitator and partner in the development process. How do we ensure sustainability? Recognizing that conservation requires more than political alignment, Peace Parks has moved beyond policy advocacy towards the active management of key protected areas. Through innovative mechanisms, we aim to ensure the long-term sustainability of these areas. In partnership with government agencies, communities, and like-minded NGOs, Peace Parks works to achieve conservation at scale, restoring biodiversity through rewildering and conserving Africa's wild species through these transboundary landscapes. In partnership with governments and in support of communities, our ambitious goal is to secure and enrich 980,000 square kilometers of transboundary landscapes across Southern Africa by 2050, focusing on 3 specific pillars. The first step in all our work is community engagement, where we implement programs that promote sustainable livelihoods, climate resilience, and local stewardship of natural resources. Conservation, the second step, can only begin once infrastructure and security are in place. Only after that can we look at rewildering, relocating species of both fauna and flora to restore economical balance. With partners, we have reintroduced more than 18,000 animals of 31 unique species to previously depleted areas, contributing to an estimated population of 100,000 animals in all parks that we co-manage. Innovative conservation finance initiatives which develop models such as carbon credits, biodiversity funds, and tourism generate revenue for park management and community development. These three pillars form the bedrock of our work. The heart of conservation. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, I wish to dwell on this point slightly more. At the core of our work are the people. The recognition that conservation cannot succeed without the active involvement of local communities. In the landscapes where we engage, communities are not just stakeholders. They are custodians of the land. Remember, we are not just dealing with protected areas. We are also dealing with communal areas. In the co-management agreements that we facilitate, communities always have a seat at the boardroom table. It is their voice that we listen to when we speak about sustainable development. Whether it is working with communities to establish alternative livelihoods through beekeeping or fish farming, or rolling out energy-saving stoves to reduce deforestation, improve household health, and generate carbon credits for the communities so they can see value, our programs are about giving people real incentives and practical tools to thrive in the transboundary landscapes that they call home. Our programs support clinics, schools, and deliver access to clean water, because conservation must meet where they are, where the people are. Peace Parks also invests heavily in skills development and training through the Southern African Wildlife College and the Tourism College. When we speak of TFCA development as a driver of rural economic development, this is what we mean. This, colleagues, is conservation with a human face. Connecting protected areas. The success of transfrontier conservation areas depends not only on the key or anchor parks themselves, but on the space between them, the ecological corridors that connect these protected areas. These areas consist of mosaic of land uses that include communities. At Peace Parks, we support this through habitat restoration projects, smart infrastructure, and collaborative governance. Looking ahead, Peace Parks Foundation has a Vision 2030, and this focuses on protecting and professionally managing 10 key protected areas and establishing restored ecological connectivity through 7 key wildlife corridors. Achieving this vision requires continued collaboration, investment, and innovation. We are grateful to our partners, EU, the German government, through the KfW, German Development Bank, and others. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, the population of sub-Saharan Africa is projected to nearly double between 2022 and 2050, increasing pressure on resources and land availability, while climate change impacts will increase. It is therefore imperative that we implement large-scale conservation efforts in the region to ensure the development of a healthy, sustainable ecosystem, which are essential for tipping the scales in the race to combat climate change. The Sadc Tfca program stands as a testament to what can be achieved when nations, communities, and organizations unite for a common purpose. The journey from diplomacy to action has been transformative, and the impact of biodiversity, communities, and regional peace is profound. As we celebrate the 25th anniversary of Transfrontier Conservation Area development in Southern Africa, we honor the legacy of all those who envisioned and worked tirelessly to realize this dream. Their vision continues to inspire our efforts as we strive to create a future where people and nature coexist in harmony. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Andrew Nambota, for giving us the journey, but also for reminding us on the importance of the communities, and some would call them the empty chair, who at times may not be present, but we are all thriving to make sure that they also benefit, but more importantly, play a role in the conservation of the wildlife heritage. Thank you so much, Prof. And another round of applause to him. I trust all of us here, if perhaps some have not greeted the neighbor next to them, I don't want you to greet them just saying hello, but just tell them one of the TFCs within Sadc as we prepare for the next keynote address. Just turn to your neighbor. Tell them one TFCA. There are 13 of them. By the moment we leave this place, this end of week, you should know 13 of them, not only those within your country. Yeah? Thank you so much. That's celebratory. I think, Prof, you said it's celebratory mood. So we should celebrate by diversity. Let's, by end of week, know all the 13 TFCAs. So now we will transition and invite our keynote speaker, who will give us a keynote address from the Sadc Secretariat. So ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to invite to this podium the Director for Food, Agriculture and Natural Resources within the Sadc Secretariat, Mr. Domingos Gove, to give us a keynote address.
Thank you, Director of Ceremonies, Professor Gandiwa. I recognize the high table here, Ambassador Chifamba, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Environment, Climate and Wildlife of the Republic of Zimbabwe, and the Chairperson of the Committee of Senior Officials responsible for Environment, Natural Resources and Tourism of Sadc. I recognize Ms. Angel Makombo Ntumba, the Sadc Deputy Executive Secretary for Regional Integration, my boss. Also, I recognize Ambassador Udo Vols, the Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany to the Republic of Zimbabwe. I recognize the representative of European Union, Mr. Bernard, and also our partners, WWF and Peace Park Foundation. It's really a pleasure to be again with you, Prof. Andrew. I do recognize also the Sadc member states, our local communities, private sector, research institutions, partners, TFCA practitioners. All protocol observed. Because I've been part of the organization, this TFCA has been hanging there for quite a number of years, almost more than 10 years. So I would like to thank His Excellency E.D. Mnangagwa, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe and the current SADC chairperson, the government and people of Zimbabwe for hosting finally this summit, including their financial and technical support and the time they have allocated for very intense preparations. I would like also to thank the SADC member states, including our TFCA's secretariats. The CASA is one of them, but there are a number of them that are seated here, through the Sadc Tfca Summit Task Force that was established to prepare this summit, for their tireless work and commitment. I would like also to thank the partners for their financial support and technical support. Many of you are supporting technically the preparation and the realization of this event, not ending today until the end on Friday. So we thank you for that commitment. We have been closely working together on all the details for this meeting since the TFCA summit was approved by the head of states. Thank you all, the participants, for investing your resources, expertise, and time to attend, participate, and hopefully you will guide the discussions and deliberations on this international conference. I urge all of you to consider yourself as part of just one Sadc Tfca team. I know you represent many organizations, but seated here, you belong to the Sadc Tfca team, where everyone is equally relevant and plays its specific role on a wider and holistic one mission. Doing that, we will not only achieve the objective of this summit, but equally re-energize ourselves for a very long walk, 100 years, towards successful TFCAs in our region. So today, with this international conference, we are starting the celebration of our 25 years. I just would like to present some of the successes and challenges in this brief. I will start by establishment and operationalization of the Sadc TFCAs. As it was indicated, we have started with this long journey in 2019 with the first Sadc TFCA, the Kalahari TFCA, between Botswana and South Africa. Then we followed with Lubombo, Maluti, Drakensberg, Shimanimane, Great Limpopo, Ace, Richveld, Great Mapungubwe, Kaza, Malau, Zambia, Niassa, Iona, Lower Zambezi, and Zimoza. Currently, as per the new TSA program 2023-2033, we have 13 TFCAs. Some of us, we still have 18 in our heads. But we consider TFCAs those that have legal instrument and those that have a clear commitment by the member states to proceed towards legalization. So the conceptual TFCAs are no longer part of the TFCA program, but they are there waiting for the commitment of member states. The establishment of these TFCAs, when we go through them, we notice that 54% of these TFCAs, 13, were established in the first 6 years since the establishment of the first TFCA. So I think there was a big momentum when we established Kalahari. And then we proceeded immediately establishing others. So 55 or 54% were established during the first 6 years. The SADC member states, which are part of the various TFCAs, are South Africa and Zimbabwe, with 6 TFCAs each. So they are part of 6 TFCAs, followed by Mozambique with 5, and Zambia with 4. In our TFCAs, none of the island states are part of TFCAs. So it's composed by coastal and inland countries so far. The area of SADC TFCAs increased from around 35,000 square kilometers in 1999 to more than 914,000 square kilometers by 2024. That is 25 years after. With CAS alone spanning for approximately 520,000 square kilometers, which is around 60% of all TFCAs across 5 countries, making it one of the world's largest conservation areas. This exponential increase may put the Sadc region, I am partial when I say this, so pardon me, as one of the regions in the continent and eventually in the entire globe with the most active actions in terms of conservation efforts. This was achieved through the political commitment of member states at the highest level, but equally through significant and continued support from our partners, many of which are here. The other aspect is that a wide range of regional instruments to operationalize and manage TFCAs have been developed by EU member states and are being used or ready to be used by TFCAs. And this includes the Sadc Tfca financing facility, which was established in 2018, is being used currently by all the TFCAs. This started with 12 million, and currently the existing or signed agreements totalize 44 million, mainly from the government of Germany. And now we are really very happy to have EU joining this very special boat by putting 10 million into our TFCAs. The aim and the dream is to raise or reach 100 million by the end of 2026. It is a dream. When you dream, you don't pay tax, so we can continue dreaming. We have also the Sadc Tfca program, 2023-2033. It has very clear goals. All the TFCA may use it. We have a toolbox on community engagement in Sadc TFCAs that was approved in 2023. So these are instruments the TFCAs can easily use. In the area of wildlife, to support the TFCA work, we have the Sadc Trade in Wildlife Information Exchange, the so-called Sadc Tfca. We have the Sadc Sites Engagement Strategy to better engage with sites and better influence the decision-making system. We have the LEAP strategy to address anti-poaching. We have the Sadc Wildlife-Based Economy Strategy framework, so that conservation is not just conservation, but it is development, sustainable development, producing money for our poor countries to proceed. In the area of forestry, we have the Sadc Forestry Strategy. In the area of tourism, we have the Sadc Tourism Program 2020-2030, which includes tourism in TFCAs. We have also the Sadc Toolbox on development of cross-border tourism products. In the area of environment, we have the Sadc strategy to implement the Great Green Wall Initiative. We have the Sadc Climate Change Strategy. We have multilateral environmental agreement guidelines. And we have the Sadc Blue Economy Strategy. So these are instruments that you member states you have developed and that are ready to be used by TFCAs. So when you establish TFCAs, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just use the existing instruments that have been approved by yourselves. So in this regard, there is a need for Sadc member states to consider, I am repeating this, using a wide range of regional instruments to strengthen the establishment and operationalization of TFCAs, to promote more coastal and marine TFCAs beyond the 2 existing. We are talking about the Ponta d'Oro and the Smangaliso and the Iona Skeleton. Those are few. These would adequately promote the Sadc Blue Economy Strategy and address the vast marine resources and biodiversity existing in 6 Sadc coastal states and 4 Sadc island states. Some of the areas that could be considered are the Mnazi Kirimbas, between Namibia and South Africa, the northern Mozambique Channel, to include the island states, and even the Mascarenes Plateau, between Seychelles and Mauritius. It's also for member states to re-energize their momentum, because it seems that we have lost a little bit momentum in terms of establishing our TFCAs, to better protect their natural resource and ecosystems, as you have done between 1999 and 2006. This momentum seems to be bouncing back, mainly through Zambia and Zimbabwe actions, with the establishment of the Lower Zambezi Mana Pools in 2023 and Zimoza in 2024 together with Mozambique. We know that there are some engagements being pursued between Angola and Zambia and DRC and Zambia. So we'd like to encourage you to proceed so that we go back to the momentum of 1999 to 2006. In terms of biodiversity impacts, Sadc Tfca alone harbors over 220,000 elephants. That is more than half of Africa's remaining savanna elephants. This population has remained stable for quite a number of years, as it has been tested by the census of 2022. While in other areas in this continent, the numbers have decreased significantly. So that is a biodiversity gain that we have achieved ourselves as SADC. The Africa black rhino rebounded from a low of 2,400 in 1995 to over 6.4 thousand today, almost 3 times more. The wildlife economy, which includes flora and fauna, in the SADC region was valued at 31.5 billion in 2019. That's a lot of money. Billion, not million. These wildlife resources not only underpin biodiversity, but also support community livelihoods and tourism revenues. On the other hand, these increase in numbers, coupled with increase in the number of human population, results in increased human-wildlife conflicts. That is natural. We are increasing as human beings, but also the biodiversity is increasing because of our conservation efforts. So we have conflicts now that are increasing, human-wildlife conflicts, every day. There is therefore a need to ensure that the carrying capacity of our TFCAs is maintained to avoid ecological imbalances. It is important that the region promotes sustainable use of wildlife, species populations that have recovered. Those populations that have recovered will really have to seriously consider sustainable use. And for that, it is critical that the capacity of the region to collectively, not individually, to collectively influence the decision-making process at sites, informed by the SADC sites engagement strategy, is urgently secured, so that the biodiversity gains that we are indicating today are not done at the expense of human lives and their livelihoods. Tens of people are killed by wildlife every year in several SADC member states. That is a fact. And partly is due to biodiversity gains. And otherwise, our conservation work and gains will not be sustainable. So if we don't adopt human-centered conservation approaches, we will not sustain our conservation efforts. We should also develop tailor-made, practical, and effective approaches to address increased human-wildlife conflicts. It's not an easy task, but we really have to do something that is effective, involving all the relevant sectors. Sometimes, as conservationists, we think that we are the ones to address it. No, it's well beyond us. This should include areas like infrastructures to address aspects of water, energy, roads, includes health, includes education, includes territorial planning, includes everyone. The other aspect is poaching, illegal logging, and illegal trade. The elephant poaching surged to a peak in 2011, when tens of thousands were killed continent-wide. And although poaching rates have declined since then, levels remain worryingly high in parts of southern Africa. At least 8,000 African rhinos were poached in the last decade. And one rhino is still being killed nearly every day. For example, in South Africa, which is home to the largest rhino population, 451 rhinos were poached in 2021. These illegal losses directly threaten the region's conservation gains. Meanwhile, a related policy, which I have touched earlier, policy issue is the management of ivory stockpiles accumulated from natural elephant mortality and anti-poaching seizures. SADC member states like Zimbabwe argue that their elephant populations are growing at a rate of 5 to 8% every year. This is an unsustainable rate for the available habitat, and have stockpiled about 130 tons of ivory, worth an estimated $600 million. However, the international ban under CITES on ivory sales remains in place, limiting revenue for conservation and fueling debate on sustainable use. The region should continue to advocate at CITES for decisions that recognize its successful elephant management using its site engagement strategy. We can't say words, we have to go there and present our case and convince them. Southern Africa has been experiencing one of the highest deforestation rates in Africa. The region loses around 0.6% of its forest cover each year, contributing roughly 31% of Africa's total deforested area annually. Key drivers include rural poverty and population growth, which leads to expansion of small-scale agriculture, unsustainable shifting cultivation, high dependence on fuel wood, illegal logging, and infrastructure development. As a result, forest degradation is widespread between 2010 and 2020. SADC countries collectively accounted for over half of Africa's biomass carbon loss from deforestation. This trend not only threatens biodiversity, but also exacerbates climate change and desertification. There is a need, therefore, to strengthen and fast-track implementation of the SADC Law Enforcement and Anti-Poaching Strategy 2022-2032. The last aspect I would like to deal with is sustainable financing. The accomplishments achieved so far in TFCAs are increasingly challenged by insecure and unsustainable financing mechanisms. Put simply, our ambitions will not sustainable progress if they are not backed by reliable funding. It is imperative that we prioritize and mainstream sustainable funding strategies across all TFCAs. One of the ways is to adequately mainstream tourism revenues into conservation and human development. I repeat, human development. Tourism is recognized as one of SADC's economic cornerstones and a driver of inclusive growth. Prior to COVID-19 pandemic, travel and tourism in Southern Africa were on a strong upward trajectory. In 2017, the sector directly contributed 2.8% of SADC's GDP, which is around $19.4 billion and about 8%, which is around $56 billion of GDP when we include indirect and induced effects. It directly supported 2.5 million jobs and altogether accounted for over 6.3 million jobs in the region, underpinning livelihoods across hospitality, transport, and attraction services. Many SADC economies, especially those rich in wildlife and natural beauty, rely heavily on tourism for foreign exchange earnings. For example, tourism contributes around 17% of GDP in Tanzania and remains largest forex earner, while Botswana's renowned ecotourism in Okavango Delta sustains thousands of jobs and community development projects. In addition to international visitors, intra-regional tourism is significant. Africans traveling within Africa comprised 44% of the continent's tourist arrivals in 2019. In Southern Africa, regional travelers from neighboring SADC countries form a large portion of tourists. For instance, the majority of arrival in South Africa are from SADC states, underscoring the importance of East cross-border travel. In this regard, the current process to expand the CASA Univisa to all SADC member states through the SADC Univisa currently being considered for piloting is a very urgent matter. The other way for securing sustainable financing is to fast-track the operationalization of the SADC Regional Development Fund, which would absorb TFCA facility and ensure member states put seed funding to multiply further resources from the private sector and other services. The Regional Development Fund, the discussion started in 1980 in April in Mulungushi in Zambia, when the ACA-DCC was established. Until now, it has not been operationalized. So it's a very long process. So the process of operationalization is currently being addressed by SADC Ministers of Finance with support from African Development Bank, and we hope and pray that this very long-standing dream becomes a reality in the near future. The third option is to think beyond traditional government and donor-based budgets and embracing innovative mechanisms that can channel new resources into conservation and sustainable use efforts. One avenue is to leverage carbon markets. The voluntary carbon market is booming, and African countries are beginning to benefit by selling high-quality carbon credits from reforestation. RED Plus projects and renewable energy. RED Plus projects and renewable energy. Several SADC member states, including Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and Namibia, are now home to major carbon offset projects that not only reduce emissions, but also funnel revenue into local communities and conservation. We must develop enabling policies to further tap into this growing market, ensuring integrity and equitable benefit sharing. Similarly, biodiversity offsets, where development projects compensate for their environmental risks that uphold no net loss of biodiversity. Another key mechanism is payment for ecosystem service, wherein beneficiaries of ecosystem services such as clean water from an intact catchment or pollination for agriculture pay those who steward those ecosystems, mainly the local communities. Around the world, hundreds of payment of ecosystem service schemes like water funds, carbon sequestration payments, wildlife conservation leases, etc., are showing promise, and we have the opportunity to establish more such schemes in our region. For example, a watershed protection payment ecosystem service scheme could see downstream water users like utilities or large farms compensate upstream communities for conserving forests that regulate water flow. This not only provides income to communities, but also incentivizes environmental stewardship. Crucially, we also need to cultivate innovative public-private partnerships for conservation and climate finance. The private sector, from tourism operators to financial institutions, can be a powerful ally in resource mobilization. We have inspiring models from SADC and already public-private trust funds for park management, corporate investments in community ecotourism, and outcome-based financing, like the recent Rhino bond in South Africa, a 150 million bond that funds rhino conservation and community development. Such partnerships bring not only funds, but also expertise, technology, and efficiency to our sustainable development initiatives. In summary, by embracing these diverse financing mechanisms like carbon markets, offsets, payment of ecosystem service, green bonds, conservation trust funds, and PPPs, we can begin to close the financial gap that hampers our efforts. We must be creative and proactive in this quest. Global commitments such as the Kunming-Montreal Biodiversity Frameworks targeting to close 700 billion annual biodiversity finance gap will only be met if regions like ours take the lead in pioneering solutions. Let us therefore use our collective political will that exists to champion sustainable financing at the national, regional, and international level. I thank you. Muito obrigado. Merci beaucoup. Asanteni sana. Maitabas. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Mr. Dongemos Gove, the Director, Food, Agriculture and Natural Resources within the Sadc Secretariat. I think from his keynote address, there are so many lessons, successes, but also he has challenged us on the future, on what we need to do as a TFC network. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude,
I said.